Good evening, Galleon. This is Mayor Tom O'Leary. No one should be as tired on Monday as I am, so let's see how we do getting through this. So I guess how I want to start is to point your attention to last Saturday's Inquirer. Read it, buy it, read it, look online. There are two articles I think I want to spend a minute or two talking about. One is a tiny little thing up there. It says Graders baseball action. We've been talking up here at City Hall about the use of the travel and tourism funds and how that's used by Experience Galleon. The Graders are just one of a handful, maybe more than a handful of organizations that helped do a little travel and tourism. So it's good to see that, and we're going to be talking with Experience Galleon later this week about doing some things with the funds that they've been able to acquire through the bed tax. That it's kind of funny. I don't want to deviate too far, but it's kind of funny. There's some criticism, some complaints about the sleep-in, but actually over the last several months since they reopened, they've been a steady bed tax payer, and we've been able to far exceed our expected revenue in the budget. So, we didn't have much to do about that, except we probably underestimated the revenue. But in any case, a lot of money's flowing in. Those dollars, half of those dollars that come from the bed tax that the city uses, so 1.5%. It used to be 3%. It went to 1.5%, and then adjoining township went ahead and reimposed 1.5%. So if you were to go out there, it'd be a 3%, or you have relatives or friends coming in, or reunions, whatever. There's a 3% bed tax. In any case, we've been able to through those payments at the hometown hotel as well, that we've been able to bring in about $58,000 to that group. So I'm excited while the service director is sitting down with the people from Experience Galleon and trying to plot a course, map a plan to use some of those dollars to make things in Galleon just a little bit better. And top on my list, and then we'll get off it, is Christmas decorations. My golly, we need to do better, and we're going to do better. And so that's one of the top of the agenda items that Nikki Ward's going to be discussing with the designated travel and tourism group in town. See what we can do about improving that. And then, I imagine that they'll get into other things, but we really need to, instead of just trying to keep those old decorations going, if you will, we need to get some new decorations up. And while certainly decorations don't substitute for an active uptown area, we need to be working on both things. So that's one of the areas that I feel like is important with Experience Galleon, with travel and tourism dollars. Hey, the other thing, real quick, and then we'll see if there's some questions. Levant Dawson Trail dedicated. That we didn't want to call it a ribbon cutting, although we did cut a ribbon, but it was a dedication of something that's become a real popular recreational activity, a family activity. I don't know, for me it takes my wife and I about 45 minutes to walk from our home on Portland Way South down, walking north on Portland Way South, over to the bike path, to the end of the bike path and back. So heck, every time we're out there we see people walking, and it was nice to formally open that and dedicate it long after it was used by many Galleonites. In fact, before I left coming up here, I was getting my van to come up here, and I heard kids back there in the trail. It used to be kids playing down at the creek, crawdad hunting and such, but now it's a frequent sound to hear from where I live. Folks using the trail, and so it's certainly been one of the most popular freeze projects that we've been able to put in place and make Galleon a little bit better. A moment or two, if you will, on the name of the trail. You've noticed over the years I've been mayor, I'm not a huge person on naming this or naming that, but I don't know, maybe it was a couple months ago, somebody who is really dedicated to the city and serves on the Freeze Foundation, and everybody's familiar with. I don't know if she mentioned that she didn't. There was no sign out there for the trail. I thought, well, my golly, and then everybody in town. And I asked around. The fact is, not everybody in town knew where that the north end of that trail, the kind of the most popular place to access the trail. So, gee, what do you need to help people recognize? You need a sign, and on the sign, you need something better than bike path. So it didn't take long for me, again, not somebody big on naming this or that around town, but to quickly realize that there were two families that were prominent in one operating a business for 3 generations on the site that fronts on Bucyrus Road, the Levant family. And I had the pleasure of growing up in the neighborhood. Jay's a couple years older. He's I guess the lone representative of the Levant family, but some of the older people who will watch this tonight or over the next couple of days would remember Lionel Levant. And then the real old people, and I'm not in that category, would have memories of Maxie Levant. And so it really was a 3-generation operation. And they agreed to swap property that they had for the vacation of some platted but never developed streets back in that property. So the first part, if you've not been out there, the first part of that trail, till you go south and go around the bend and head west, that's all on Levant property. And then to the west of that was, and this will tax the memories of some of the older people that are watching or will catch this later this week, the old children's home property. And there are all kinds of memories related to that. I don't want to take a lot of time tonight, but I sort of inadequately described this the other day on Thursday when we had the dedication. So I want to try it again, see if take 2 is any better. There are dozens of people who are now adults, they're grandparents, they're along in life, who were really had their life changed because of the few years they spent or months they spent or whatever period of time it was at the Galleon Children's Home. It was a county facility, but things have changed a lot over the last 30, 40 years. And when Clem and Jane Dawson, Ma and Pa Dawson, for the people who live there, operated that home that is no longer there, the old children's home, in a way that improved a lot of people's lives. And over the years, I've had plenty of encounters where somebody would mention that and what a big influence they had on their lives. Things changed a lot. Give me 1 second to reminisce, folks. Please don't turn off. The kids from the children's home used to go around town and sell the produce that they helped grow in the garden. Pretty useful way of working with families that didn't have much structure, kids that were orphaned, or whatever the situation was. So I'll always remember the quote-unquote children's home kids coming around the various neighborhoods selling the produce. It's a different model, and some night, but not tonight, we could get into a discussion about what's called least restrictive placement in the in the child welfare world, versus having people whose parents need to strengthen, get better, be able to take care of their kids, have them stay in a place, get a sense of place, develop a sense of family. And so it's not for tonight, but maybe sometime soon we can discuss how foster home, foster parenting goes as compared to the old children's home method. But the point I'm trying to make is that the Dawson family, Jeff and Linda, were able to be there to represent the family. both of these people I've been talking about for a second, they're still around. They're in their 90s. It's, it's a proud life they've had a chance to live in about 30 some years. They were Ma and Pa Dawson, not only to their family, but certainly to dozens of kids in the community. So it really felt like those two families whose property, one was saved by the family who didn't just sell off the old children's home and throw in the towel, and then certainly the Levant family, who's not really in the community anymore, but was willing to make that donation and that property swap. Last thing I'll say is that all this stuff would not have happened if Avita had not agreed to rearrange the 10-year lease that they had with the CIC going back to when they acquired the old properties over there and brought DaVita. Really, I think people don't remember what it was like as very well, what it was like to take dialysis patients on a day, not a daily, but a couple, 3 times a week. They'd have to take them out of the community to get that excruciating treatment. Now we have that back up. We have that here in Galion at Keller Hall. Really a nice improvement. Thumbs up to Avita on that. And then the old children's home admin building, is where they have the pediatric center. So one of the keys to making all this happen was to have Avita agree to have a permanent easement where part of the trail goes through, and then acquire on a permanent basis those now medical facilities, and allow the rest to come back to the city for future recreational type development. So could have named it Dawson, Levant, Avita Trail, but I thought, let's just go with those two families and then recognize Avita for the role that they played in this, and on with the show. So that was really, get Saturday's Enquirer, go online. There's some information in there that's worthwhile, and I know we in City Hall appreciate working with the Enquirer and not sharing stories, but whenever I can plug their print copy, I will. So anyways, the skinny guy in the picture, just disregard him. I'm working on my Halloween costume. So, all right, any questions?
Yeah, I do have a couple of us to get started here. First one came from Dawn. Mm-hmm. She asked, what's going on where Pico 2 was located?
That is the demolition of Pico 2. We'll go back a few years. Heck, from the time I got re-involved in local government, one of the things that felt like was important to accomplish is being accomplished. I've been born impatient. I've been an impatient person, so I've had to learn to go with the flow, as they say, or some people say. So that project to get Pico 2, first we looked at trying to redevelop it, and for reasons not really worth bending your ear over, real low ceilings in the manufacturing area, made it clear to community leaders, I guess that's what I am as mayor, but other people in the development area, that needed to be acquired, and demolished, and then a new building built on that. So that's what you're seeing, Dawn, is that the demolition, like I said, I'm impatient, so I wish it was done yesterday, but it's getting there. And what you'll see most likely, because of the delivery of steel and the long lead times that we're seeing coming out of this COVID economic situation, you'll likely see that new building being built early next year. So that new building is maybe 50,000 square feet, maybe a little bit smaller, but it is going to be funded through a grant. I don't even, excuse me for a second, I don't even know what a forgivable loan is, but I'm trying to understand it so I can talk intelligently. But this is a $2.5 million commitment from the state that is a loan. And if they were able to convert it over and bring jobs there, it will turn over into a grant. So that was pretty clumsy way of describing this thing as a forgivable loan. We'll have to, maybe somebody will call in and straighten me out on what that means. But essentially, you're going to see state money and private money from the JBS Development Group. And we're going to see a new manufacturing / warehousing building go up there in the corner of 598, probably early 2022. Although, gee, in an election year, you wish it was. Maybe we'll have a phony groundbreaking or something beforehand. But anyways, that's going to happen. I'm excited about it. You hate to start talking about it too much, Don, because we're nearly got the site cleared, and now becomes the important part, the redevelopment. You find in business, certainly in government, you can find a lot of people that want to serve the public that are great at tearing down and demolishing, but they're sort of scratching their head when it comes to, well, what are we going to put in its place? This project has looked at both getting the old building out of the way and a way to get a new building, a new manufacturing building for Galleon. And so, pretty excited about it. Gee, I'm glad you asked. What else we got, Matt?
All right. Next question tonight came from Teresa. She asked, "Why can't Galleon get a grocery store?"
I've said this. I said it last week or a couple weeks ago. I'm real I get yelled at home about being not more faithful and a little superstitious. So anyways, I'm a little superstitious, so I don't want to jinx this, but I have confidence, faith in this is going to happen. And I think it's next week from today, that I have a chance, and I'm not sure, maybe have one or two other people go over and tour one of the grocery stores that in the area that is run by the company that's very close to putting things together at the old Geyers property. So, if you read the social media, you've heard the name dropped all over the place. For once, the rumors might be right as far as the name, but we'll wait and see how that goes. And there are a couple of pieces of the puzzle to fall in place, but we're closer than we've been since the doors were locked up on Geyers now. Gosh, it seems like 3 years ago. So Teresa, help on the way. And it really is a project where the city, although we're, I'm going to say reduced to, because that would make every cheerleader in the audience, and my granddaughter's really upset. I'm really kind of in the role of a cheerleader on this, and without going on too long about it, when Geyers first shut down, my position up here has been that, hey, the landlord and the grocery community have more to gain, more reasons to get this in place than the city does. I mean, I'm not sure exactly as many people have asked over the last couple of years, what's going to happen? What are you going to do about it? I don't know, sounds corny maybe for the people who aren't religious. I'd say, what am I going to do? I'm going to pray. So I have been. I don't want to say that my prayers have been answered, but what I would say is that it's largely a private sector issue, and there was a limited amount that the city could do just with the force of city government. So you're just on the side of hoping that things will work out. And I think that's where we're close to, Teresa. We're close to getting that in place. And the company talked a lot about on the internet. If you've had a chance to go to their stores, it would be in basketball terms, it would be a 3-pointer for sure. It's a real quality operator, and we're excited without jinxing it. How's that sound?
Well said.
Well, you think? Okay, if you say so.
All right. Next question I had tonight came from Kelsey. A lot of the city people would like to know about the locks on the parks.
Yeah, I think we're down to, I don't know exactly what to say about that. There's one field, I was told as late as, I'm going to digress for a second, Kelsey, I'll come right back. There was a bit of a dust up over the weekend about bathrooms being locked at South Park. So that was quickly and easily addressed. As it turned out, I saw the president of Galleon Youth Baseball at a Graders game, and we talked for a minute, and he said the only fields with locks on them is the Little League field at Heisey Park. He also told me a story about he was out at South Park getting ready for a game, and one of these people concerned about the locks in the park must not have brought their plastic bag with them because he stepped in a big pile of it. So I think if I know Kelsey, he's a big baseball fan. Man, it's locked up so as to not have canine feces on the field. And we could coexist a little bit better if the people who, and I get it, if you have a big dog, you have a small yard, you don't have many places to walk them in Galleon, you know, that seems like a great place to take your dog. But I don't quite understand, and I think those folks among us that want to create a dog park or two, man, if people just think it's a place to take their dog to go crap in the dog park and not clean it up, that's going to be a real, you can't say it on TV, bad idea. So anyways, not to yell at Casey or Kelsey or anyone, but it was interesting that that when I talked to the president of the league, none of the fields are locked except the Heisey Park. They've got some Little League tournaments coming up, the All-Star tournaments. But it's funny that people concerned about locking. I'm going to repeat. If you want to coexist until we get the dog parks put up, take a bag with you and pick it up. This is pretty. And that's why they're locked in the first place. Not because they're dog haters. They're locked because a lot of times put in the field, you have people come from out of town, you have games, you have younger kids out there, and you're dancing through a swamp of dog crap. So, all right, I told you I was tired. You give me another question, I could really go off on our I don't mean to do that, but that's my take on it, Kelsey. There's only one field, and it is now Heisey Park, and it is funny that the guys trying to finish up the games at South Park have to step in the neighborhood's dog's crap, and then the people are all concerned. The people of Galleon are all concerned about their locked up. They're people who actually put time in on the baseball fields are kind of concerned about stepping in your dog's crap. All right, that's a great vote getter. See ya.
Kelsey added that he knew why the field was locked. He just wanted to.
Oh, so you threw me a lob ball? All right, get out of here, Kelsey. Love you, man. We've known each other since you were little and I was young. Thanks for sending that in.
All right. Next, I did have just a comment from RC in response to the grocery store question.
Yeah.
He said Galleon can't make any business here.
Well, I think I would agree with him or disagree with him. I think that, again, this company's looked at it quite a bit. I've not had extensive conversations, but it's not a chain. I don't want to use that. It's a medium-sized independent. And they had conversations with the previous owner, and they've been hunting this site for about 2.5 or 3 years. So I don't know. I don't know much about it, RC. I never ran a grocery store. It's a little bit like everyone, because you shopped in a grocery store, you think you can run it. What I've learned in this last few years is just how tough a business it is, and that I don't feel like this firm, which is turns out to be employee owned, so I don't think the employee owners are going to invest in a community that they don't think they can make money in. Now, if when it comes to any investment they make in kind of a hot, there are other places. I'm not sure what they'll have here in Galleon, but there are other stores actually have in-house restaurants. I don't think I'm counting on that, but they will have that kind of, you get off work, you're tired, you want a real meal, you can go in there and buy something. A la Carly's is probably the only place that I can think of in the county. So I look forward to that. I hope that that's part of it. But the key will be the extent to which people give up the Ontario convenience. You'll price shop, I'm sure, to make sure, you know, if this is too expensive, then yeah, I go to Meijer. I'll see you over there next week. I think we're about ready to go. Heck, I fed 15 college ball players tonight, so I'm pretty tired. And I expect nothing to be there when I get back, but I digress. But anyways, what I think part of it, RC, is that people are going to have to shop there. I think honestly, like they did at Geyer's, until it became difficult to shop there. So come on, you know, you hear a lot of crap. I'm all full of crap tonight. You hear a lot of talk about leather sweaters and we need to all work together. Hey, this is a time when if you're an orange and blue kind of person, guy or gal, shop Gallion. So we'll get there, I think. And, you know, it's a much more difficult to agree with RC when we're a little less than 10,000 people. It's more difficult to make different businesses that people would like to see work than if we were 13, 14, 15,000. But I think right now we want to sort of stabilize where we're at, and it'll be a good day if we can. I say we. It's really back to the developer, the owner of the property, and this grocery operator. So we'll be cheering and thanking them if we get to that point later this fall.
Okay, thanks, Mayor.
Yep.
Those were all the questions I had.
Okay, that's all. That's. I think I don't know what else to add. Usually I have something, kind of a closer to add on. What I would want to say is that Wednesday night is the committee meeting. I think they pushed, and I appreciate that. I sort of made a request. I won't be in town tomorrow, so they're going to take what I think is a opportunity to get some of these housing projects going in the community. All of us that go to Arby's or any of the Drug Mart Plaza, you see that those apartment buildings. I understand they're all filled but one, and some of the chaos that's been created as a result of COVID and the spiking of prices. A lot of that, to me, is political manipulation, but we got to live in that world that maybe we're being manipulated. In any case, what we'll talk about on Wednesday is an idea coming. The ports agreed to help work to get that going, and the idea is to utilize some city funds on a transfer basis. So that's enough of a tease. Once again, the ports agreed to look at some creative things and try to make things happen in town. And for me, it gives me a group to work with to take some of my ideas that are maybe, they're not simple, they're not straightforward, but I really think that this one in particular is worth developing. So I want to be around on Wednesday to participate in that discussion about how city funds can safely be used by the Port Authority, and actually we'll get our housing started, and the city will certainly be completely covered in any risk that they take. So that's really a tease, isn't it, Matt? Mm-hmm. So that's all I got tonight. I'll go on for another minute or two. If maybe we'll scare up a question. We're moving ahead on trying to get the Pico netting project accomplished. We've been in contact with some vendors. We're looking at trying to get a vendor that is more of an Ohio-based firm than the lowest one that the lowest quote that we have received is from Illinois, of all places. So we're working on that. And I also think that we're getting our minds or our arms wrapped around the scope of work for East Park and the rebuilding of that facility. The other freeze project that, I don't know, I guess you get to do this when you're in the mayor's office, and so we were looking at a variety of shelters for Heisey Park. And so I think we had kind of you can't make it a full democracy, but we looked in the office and we've really, I think, settled in on a shelter house that's well within the amount allocated or dedicated by the Freeze Foundation. And so, once again, I'm become so shy, so gun shy, if you will, about quoting time frames. But we're going to dive in there into this business of getting the materials and getting a contractor and replacing that shelter in Heisey Park. So, am I forgetting a freeze project? Kind of a big, medium-sized freeze project? Yeah, I don't think so. If I am, I'll remember. Oh, with the bike path. Yeah, we're going to do that this year too. But again, I'm maybe more confident about that because, really is clearing the right of way and the asphalt's being produced all over the place. So maybe we'll get that one done for sure. But everything else will keep you updated because materials, everybody hears about it. Getting people to come back to work so that so that the labor necessary to build whatever we're talking about can happen. All of that's in the works. So I don't know. Either Matt's getting real popular, he's getting a lot of messages, or we have anything more?
Aaron messaged in. He mentioned dog parks.
Yeah, I think dog parks. That is. He's right. That's one of the other big projects. And at South Park, it's simply a matter of getting a fence out there. And I met for the first time the guy who's done a lot of competitive quoting around here. Matt's worked with him a lot, but he was in here, I think, getting information about that project. The tougher one, maybe the one where we've got the opportunity to get the fence in this year, but the bathrooms next year is likely the Kobe Park. So I'm glad Aaron sent that in. That's the other bigger project this year, eh?
Correct.
I think so. So, anyways, a lot going on. I got hit in the ribs the other day on social media about all I care about is the park. So, tell you what, some night we'll talk about. I got a couple of minutes. It's not like they're going to cut us off after 30 minutes. Those people who are in the community who are particularly focused on the value of and the positive and negatives that are related to Muni Electric need to do what they can to search the internet. I'm certainly doing that each day and keeping in touch with AMP Ohio. And this will get into into the politics of climate change. But the state of Illinois, largely, I think, I'm 2 states away, I can think whatever I want. But anyways, largely because of intrastate politics. They're looking at a major climate bill and comprehensive energy legislation, it's known as. And it has to do with subsidizing 3 nuclear plants. It's more complicated than this, but somewhat in exchange for allowing the sunsetting of any fossil fuel generating power in Illinois past 2035. Somebody ought to send those guys out there a Green New Deal t-shirt because it's that date, that no more emissions, no fossil fuel after 2035 is pretty common when you look at the national rhetoric, the national battle over climate change. So anyways, Illinois is out in front. Why is that important to me? Why are you going on? Because the issue of the Prairie State generating plant is likely to bubble to the surface. And I've been keeping a close eye on it for several weeks now. So our hopes here in Ohio, as many Ohio communities, Galion being one that long before we went back to a mayor, long as in like a couple, 3 years before we went back to a mayor system, we made a long-term commitment to funding this Illinois power plant, with many other, and then a longer-term commitment to buy power from that plant. So that issue that some people have been in the community watching city government for a number of years, the whole Prairie State issue, which was a big issue back in 2013 and into 14. Real dynamic change going on out there, and we're keeping an eye on it. And of course, our position is that they would not sunset that plant, and that they would allow all of the communities that have longer-term debt to recover that money, be able to pay those bonds. That would include Galion. All over Ohio, in Virginia. I think the key thing on this, and this is how I would end this kind of monologue on Prairie State, is that there are many Illinois suburbs who bought into the Peabody Coal idea of this plant before Ohio communities were introduced to the idea. So it's not so simple as Illinois goes green, they stop burning natural gas, they stop burning coal, totally off the fossil fuel thing. Only thing I have to say about that is I wouldn't want to be in Chicago in August in a real small apartment with a little fan or a small air conditioner. Man, oh man, sounds like some hot times, like we're stepping back 2 or 3 generations. But anyways, we'll see if the air conditioning can go on without fossil fuel electric generation. Hope the wind's blowing, guys. But in any case, how it relates to us is it's a large part of the power that we buy, and so we'll scrap all the way and support any kind of provision in this Illinois legislation. They're recessed out there in Illinois, and so the wheeling and dealing that goes on is largely has an intrastate dynamic, and so our ability to do much more than cheer from the sidelines is I think kind of limited. But I don't Ohio is trying to keep their legislative efforts up. So I don't know. It's maybe smoke signals on the horizon. We're working hard to make sure it doesn't happen. Those of us who believe that you need baseload power, here in a couple, 6 or 8 weeks, it'll be August. We'll peak. That'll be the time that we're peaking on our electric use. And I don't want to get to a California state of mind where, when you need the electric the most, to keep your freezer going, to keep your air conditioning going, to keep the medical equipment in the community going, then you get some sort of BS brownout. So, we need fossil fuel generate. My opinion is we need fossil fuel generated baseload power, and that we've seen the shenanigans that go on with the big power companies and the nuclear power phase out, phase in, and so without taking another 2 or 3 minutes talking about it, the 3 big nuke plants in Illinois are the 500-pound gorilla in this whole discussion, and that gorilla doesn't know where Galion, Ohio is. So we're gonna be in the thick of it over the next few weeks and keeping close track, and I'll introduce the idea and come back next week and the next few weeks and try to keep you posted on what insightful or boneheaded legislation, like a fur ball caught in the cat's throat, what they cough up out there in Illinois. Hey, just one more thing. Springfield, Illinois, because with me everything has a political spin. honest enough to say that. Springfield, Illinois, fortunately, capital of Illinois, is one of those cities that's deeply on the hook for Prairie State, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. Coal miners and local citizens in Illinois may be our best hope. So, all right. Did that provoke anything else?
No.
All right, then I'll stop the tease. Rather long tease. And I think I'll say goodnight after this. I expect this thing that I just introduced, the politics of coal, the politics of energy, whether or not Galleon should have fought to get out of the Prairie State deal. Some of the same people are complaining about locking up or unlocking the South Park bathrooms. Those same people in the community, watch for it. They'll be fussing about Prairie State. You can count on it. So, with that sort of tease and the whole information about Prairie State, we'll say goodnight and we'll see you next week. Wednesday night, big night with the Finance Committee. Talk to you then.